So, let me begin by saying it's October, and if the stores can fill up with Christmas stuff, I'm going to say Merry Be Christmas.
That's pretty clever, Tony. You've got quite a collection of shirts.
The bee shirts are just everywhere. They're fun, and whatever I want to have a good laugh, I go with it.
Well, you have some chicken shirts too, don't you?
I've got some chicken shirts. I've even got some bee shoes.
Bee shoes. Oh, okay.
You should see the latest. It's quite impressive.
Well, if you didn't know, Tony's his hobby is bees, and he's also
Addiction.
Addiction. Okay, yeah,
Honesty.
that's right. You do correct me every time I say that. So it's his addiction is bees, and he's also the designer and developer of the bee vacuum that we sell. And but last time we did one of these, which was I think last week, we talked about the show that we had gone to.
Yep, in all the way to Virginia.
Yeah,
quite the drive.
it was quite the drive. And up in Virginia, we met a lot of country folk, a lot of city folks, and some kind of not sure which direction they wanted to go.
And a lot of people are moving out, and that's very common. You want to get out, have a little more
absolutely.
room with the kids and such.
Yeah.
And we thought it might be fun to just have a little video and talk about what's the difference between city living and country living. Have some fun with it. We've both lived in both.
Yeah.
And I thought we'd talk through what the differences are.
Well, I started as a young boy up in Oklahoma, in the woods of Oklahoma, just north of Muskogee, Oklahoma, for those of you that know where Muskogee is. And then we moved into the big city of Muskogee. And I can remember the first time that I actually saw a city. I was about 7 years old. And not very many people can say that. I thought my life was pretty much the 3 or 4 friends that I had in my neighborhood. I thought everybody lived like that. So, but then after we moved in the city, we didn't turn back. We lived in the city from that point on. And boy, is there a difference.
Yeah. I was born in a city as well. And as a kid, my family moved out to what I thought was country. Yeah, you might call it more of a suburb type thing. Because it was, half acre type properties. But we had woods to go run in and not get in trouble. And there was a little swamp. We'd go fishing and catch these big old fish. Because we were,
Tony, you got to do this, right?
Well, yeah, according to my age then, you're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
yeah.
They were some monsters.
Yeah, they were, yeah.
Old swamp, whatever.
City living is so much different than country living. And I have a son-in-law he's from Houston. And he's a football star and all of that. He's in the Louisiana Hall of Fame for college football. So he's a really good guy too. I like him a lot. I'm really proud to have him as a son-in-law. But his daughter, Bella, my granddaughter, just recently got rabbits, and he didn't know anything about country. Well, my daughter comes home from spending a weekend with us, and he had to stay there with her. And he said, "Man, those rabbits are loud. They kept him up all night long."
Really?
Yeah. That's exactly that was my expression. And I said, "How can rabbits be loud?" And my daughter's just cracking up laughing. She goes, "Dad, I went out there and it was the crickets."
Oh. Okay. I was thinking they were chewing, because when you're in the city, you usually have all the rats chewing everything up. But
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, stomping in their
loud
pants.
rabbits. Okay. Well, yeah, that's almost.
They almost sound the same.
That's almost how radically different living in the city versus living in the country is.
It is. And it's a really hard transition. And I'll use a comparison. If you take somebody from Chicago and move them to Nowhereville, Texas, their driving style, the old joke of New York second is the amount of time it takes for the light to change from red to green and then for the horn behind you to honk.
That's very true. Very true.
And you get out to the rural area, and people are just easier going, slower. They're enjoying life, in my opinion, a whole lot more. It's not in that rush.
It's so laid back that when we first came to this little town, which was about 30 years ago, we had one red light. And before that red light, we had a train track. And certain time of the day, the train would come by and might even block traffic for 15, 20 minutes. Well,
you got the green one right there.
Some of the older people would fall asleep, and you had to go knock on their window to wake them up so you could go. But nobody got upset about that.
Yeah.
Nobody blew their horn. They would just say, "Oh, well, that's just so and so. Let me go wake him up," because everybody knew everybody.
And they knew, oh, that's Farmer Bob. He
Yeah,
he he was fighting to save a calf yesterday, so he didn't sleep at all last night.
exactly,
So
exactly.
yeah, we knew everything about each other.
The other thing is about the weather too. I mean, the people in the city are begging that it doesn't rain because their grass is going to have to grow and they'll have to mow it. And we're out here begging for rain so that our grass will grow so our cows can eat.
Well, the same thing. People in the city say, I don't want it to rain because they just washed their car.
Yeah,
Out here, I say, Lord, let it rain so it can wash my
you can
car.
wash your car. Exactly.
Oh,
But we do have a lot of commonality as well.
yeah, we both have livestock.
Yeah,
In the city, you got the mice and the rats. actually,
yeah,
possums and raccoons are incredibly
they're
popular in
they're
cities.
prolific no matter where they
Yeah,
are.
yeah.
They
They
really
love those
are.
trash cans.
They do, and we all have children, we all have families, and we all have the same ideas about our families. We want the best for them, and so
And with pets, people in town have pit bulls. People in the country have bulls.
yeah, real bulls. Yeah, normally the dogs are much more friendlier than some of these bulls we have over here.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. People think bulls are these gentle critters. I've been tossed by 120 feet. They are not near as fun as you would really think.
I hate to pick on my son-in-law, but he was out helping me one time with the cattle, and I told him, I said, that bull's coming at you, Jose. I said, get out of the way. And so he puts his arms up to wave it, and that was kind of like challenging the bull. And the bull come at him, and he literally jumped over about a 5-foot barbed wire fence and cleared it,
Wow.
flat-footed, without
bless
hitting
him.
him. Of course, he's young, he's athletic, so
He
was
is
able to,
strong. He is
yeah,
very strong.
yeah. But
Thank God.
he got broke in pretty quick about you don't stand in the way of a 2,000-pound bull when he wants a part of you.
I remember one time, I don't know if it was getting your place or leaving your place or what it was, but you had a cow that was just mad. And you were at the barn, and so I picked you up at the barn and gave you a ride back to your house because you weren't going to make it.
Exactly. That was my neighbor's cow that got on my property, and the neighbor tried to come get him, and he tried to attack him too.
Oh, okay.
So, I hate to say on camera how we got rid of that cow, but you can imagine.
Sometimes, yeah, in the countries, in the city, a lot of times people say, okay, call the police, call animal, call for help.
Yeah,
In the countryside, your call is your own phone number.
yeah.
A lot of times.
Remember that time I gave you that freezer full of meat?
Oh yeah, yep,
That's
yep,
part of what happened to that cow.
yeah. Okay.
But he didn't go to waste, and but in the city we learn how to process animals, and we understand where our meat comes from.
Well, in the country.
Well, in the city also, but it seems to be.
No.
Well, it seems to be a lot of people in the city know that, but they don't want to accept it.
Well, I remember a joke from years ago. There was a girl that, she's a vegan or I don't know what she was, but she's telling this person, "How can you slaughter your animals? Why don't you get them from the grocery store
Oh,
where no
exactly.
animals get hurt,
I forgot
like
about
everyone
that.
else?"
Yeah, I remember you saying that. I forgot about that.
But yeah, and in the countryside, a lot of times when you're raising the kids, you'll have you might raise some pigs. The kids will have like a 4-H project, and you name the kids like Bacon, Ham, Spare Rib.
I had a cat named Roadside.
See,
You can only imagine where I found it.
and but kids in the country understand that whole cycle, and most of the animals out in the countryside, they live a pretty good life. Their first day's kind of rough, their last day's kind of rough, but everything in the middle are pretty good lives.
One thing that getting back to the family, just the family difference, the dynamics of a country type family that's raised kind of in a low key, slower type environment, there seems to be a lot less stress on the family. And many times, not always, but most of the time, the children are very helpful in the family, and they understand everybody has chores to do, and it doesn't just fall on one or two. And in the city, with everybody working, the hustle bustle of here and there seems to be a lot of anxiety in the families. And I think that's the reason why a lot of families are really recognizing that now, certainly since COVID, and they all tried to get out into the country, that they're realizing the advantages of driving 20 or 30 miles to work every day because of what just the calmness of the family.
Yeah,
And
the peace, the safety, and you get to know your neighbors. And
mhm.
and we are all flawed. It's, okay, this neighbor over here, he's got some bad fences and his horses will be
Yeah,
getting out. And that neighbor over there is having some lost his job, having some struggles, and we help each other as we can and how we can.
yeah.
And it's just a more of a community
But
feel.
even in the country, fences do make good neighbors.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Um, and funny story. I remember a few years back, this bull showed up on my place, and he was just the ugliest bull. And I knew the neighbor on this side had ugly cattle, so I just went to the gate and pushed him back through there. And then a couple days later, I found out, oops, it wasn't his ugly bull. It was the neighbor on the backside's ugly bull. Um, so, sometimes you get things wrong, but, you
Yeah,
try.
yeah,
But yeah, good. And the difference, though, in country, your fence is really intended to keep the animals apart,
right.
and it works well for the people.
Hmm.
When you get into the city, that's when everyone puts up all these privacy fences. They don't want to see each other. They don't want to hear each other, and it's really more separation.
That brings up another point: is the camaraderie between just people in general. I know that, like you just alluded to, that the people in the city, uh, there's just so many diverse people in the communities, and you really don't know what kind of person these people are unless you spend time with them. They seem to isolate themselves a lot more, and they don't seem to be as accepting with people they don't know. So they're very, very, very cautious, and I think the people in the country probably should be more cautious than they are, but they're a lot more accepting and just more kind of blind to the danger around them many times.
Yeah, yeah. It goes back to personal responsibility.
It does.
You've got
It does.
to. I don't care whether you're a city or the country. In the city, there might be a mugger back there. In the country, it might be a rattlesnake.
Yeah.
Either situation is
Right.
dangerous. Um, and it's I'm reminded of the. I'm sure you've probably seen the video of, I think it was like 100 Amish or maybe Mennonite men that this person wanted to move their barn, and 100 men literally picked up this barn and walked it the whatever it was quarter mile. That
Oh, I've actually helped them do that.
yeah.
Maybe not a huge barn like 2,000 square feet, but we have
Mhm.
actually picked up, cut it from the foundation and picked it up, and I think we moved one of them like 200 feet.
Yeah.
But
And
that's 2/3 of a football field for those of you that don't know, and that's a long way to be carrying a building.
and that's community. That's church.
Yeah,
That's people
everybody.
saying we help each other when it's needed.
Right, right. And so whether you're from the city or from the country, we know that that God is with you if you believe in Him. We know that if you don't believe in Him, God wants to be with you. And so I just want to,
Well, I'll add to that. In my opinion, if you
yeah,
read through and you hear of the city of Babylon, I'm sorry, not Babylon, the Tower of Babel.
yeah,
As I read the Bible, I believe that was the first city. And when people get together in too large of a crowd, their heads get too big, and they run into ego problems. And that's when God spread them, and He told Adam, go and populate and fill the world. He didn't say grab into giant clusters where you're 8 feet away from your neighbors.
Well, you're right, Tony, but I believe it also said that when they speak the same language, there's nothing that they can't accomplish. I think that's what that
That's true
says.
too. Yep.
And in other words, if they're all in agreement, there's nothing that they can't accomplish. I think is what that really meant. Um, but we thank you for watching this video. We hope that it inspires you to maybe come to the country and just check it out. If you're really stuck in the city, I pray that it works out for you. But just know that no matter where you are or where you live or what your station in his life, there is a purpose for you in God's creation. And it's really up for you to discover that on your knees before God. The Word says that He'll reveal it to you if you'll ask Him, and He reveals it to us in some strange ways. You know, I know when I lived in the city, I asked the Lord to help me. The next thing you know, I went into bankruptcy.
Yeah.
And it's through that bankruptcy that I ended up back into the country where I began life as a young child. And
Yeah.
so be careful what you pray for, kind of thing, right?
And cities and country have a lot more in common,
Yeah,
just slightly different motives. For
yeah,
instance, if you're in the city, a lot of people carry guns either to attack someone or to defend themselves. In the country, a lot of people carry guns, not so much to attack, but to defend with their, whether it's coyotes or a rattlesnake or something else.
well, everywhere I go, I've got normally a pistol in the truck, and it's for that very reason. It's not for people, because we don't really have those kind of issues in this community yet. You know, with some of the things that are happening in our country, that may change. But right now in this community, it really isn't all that bad. But when I go out onto the ranch and I'm just checking fence line or I'm just driving around to see things, you know, I do run across coyotes who are trying to get my cattle. And other things as well. And so we do carry it for that
I
reason.
remember one time I was literally riding on the riding mower, and it was a drought time, and this coyote came up within 100 feet or so, grabbed one of my ducks,
Oh no!
and it's like, well, I should have been carrying my gun at that point because lost actually 2 ducks over that.
Do you remember the story about the bobcat I told you?
Oh yeah, yep,
Yeah,
yep.
I was in my chicken yard, and at the time, the fence on my chicken yard, I think it was I think 8 feet
Is it
high.
8 feet? Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought it was high enough. Bobcat. I've been having bobcat problems while I built it, and I didn't. Okay, that's good enough. I went out there to work in the yard. The next thing I know, a bobcat jumps over the fence, looks at me, and then jumps right over my head over the fence with a chicken in
I was
his
gonna say with
mouth.
the chicken in his mouth. Yeah.
And he didn't even touch the fence, and it was 8 feet. And if you'd have told me that was possible, I would not have believed you. But it happened, and so I went another foot, and now my fence is 9 feet high, and that extra foot did it. I haven't had a problem since. But some of these animals around here, they're not as fluffy and nice and beautiful as you think they are when they get a chance. You get in front of a raccoon, between him and his food, and you're going to find out real quick how cute that raccoon really is.
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Absolutely, absolutely. Raccoons are vicious. They really are. There's no shortage of them, by the way.
Oh goodness, no. Yeah. Go on the internet. There's people selling raccoon meat.
$40 a pound.
Crazy.
Yeah,
Ground raccoon meat. Okay.
I know most of that's in Louisiana, but
I'm not. I don't want to blame any state for that.
yeah, well, that's what I saw. Most of them were coming from Louisiana, but there's obviously a lot of raccoons in Louisiana.
But anyways, different lifestyles. You can tell here we're out in the countryside, and you can hear some background noises. But it's our choice. We both live. I live a mile that way. He lives about 4 or 5 miles that way, and the shop's in the middle. And rural living really it's easier on your heart, I think.
Well, I know it has been on mine, and it's been really good for my family. My grandkids were raised in the city, but they don't like the city. They have fond memories of spending all the holidays out here on the ranch. And my daughter was raised on the ranch, and why she married a city guy, I don't know, but he is a good guy, I must admit. She married well.
Oh, he's a handsome man.
He's a handsome man. He's smart. He's an engineer. So she did well, and he's a really kind person, a good man. And so, but she married a city guy, and so I was rather surprised by that, to be honest with you, because in her youth, the parties that she went to were what they called tailgate four-wheeling parties.
Oh, yeah.
And they would get on their little four-wheelers and in the middle of the night chase each other in the field by the moonlight. And the kind of parties you have as a young person in the country are very different than the city. And of course, sometimes alcohol would be involved, and sometimes wouldn't. We are talking about some young teenagers here.
Yep.
But it seemed like that they all looked after each other, and nobody went so crazy where anybody got hurt.
And I think that's kind of where I was on before, where in the countryside, it's more community, it's more watching out for each other, and watching out for yourself.
Right, right. I know when we get together, the church meetings that we get together, a church meeting in the city, as I remember it, was pretty much you go to the church, you share a meal, you tell some stories, you get caught up, then you go home. A church meeting at my church is normally in the field, and we do target shooting, or we do skeet shooting, or we go we fish in the stock tank, or we go pick blueberries or
Blueberries.
dewberries, and so those are the kind of meetings we have here in the country in our church. So
And
it's
the most violent thing you mentioned was dewberry picking because,
oh man,
oh my
your
lord,
hands will swell up.
if you're not a
If you don't have
diabetic,
calloused hands, you're gonna get swollen up.
yeah, those they have 2 billion. I think there's about 1,000 uh, uh,
Needles.
needles per berry.
But if you're like me, one in the bucket, one in my mouth. One in the bucket, one in my mouth. So.
Ow!
Yeah,
Ow!
yeah, exactly. It's hard to beat dewberry pie right out of the field.
Oh man!
Yeah,
Oh
that's,
man!
yeah, that's good.
And it grows everywhere. Every
Yeah,
fence line has
it
it.
really does.
All right. Well, shall we wrap her up?
We were on to wrap her up, and
Thanks for watching.
thanks
And
for
just for
watching.
the record, this is October 27th, I believe.
27th. That's right. And,
We're almost up to Halloween, which means Merry Christmas.
yeah, and we're only just days away from a new president. So I don't want to get political, but I'll go out and vote.
Amen.
That's your God-given right. It's your country duty, and if you don't vote, you can't complain about who wins. So go out and vote your conscience. Thank you for watching.
God bless.